At TVIS News, wherever the big news story is happening, we're geared up to break it. TVIS News, first with breaking news.
Good morning and thank you very much for joining us. I am Yori Folarin. Let's look at the fuel price hike. The fuel price increase, it hit us very, very recently. I don't know that we were expecting it or not, and we'll look at, I have a couple of experts on this subject, and we'll look into it. First of all, let me introduce Mr. Bala Zakar, Public Affairs Analyst. Thank you very much for coming along.
Thank you.
I just called you Public Affairs Analyst because that is indeed what you are, but he's
Correct.
also an engineer, and he's a geological engineer for that matter. But all of that, we're putting that to one side this morning. With all of that knowledge, we try to find out how we can relate with this. And I'm also happy to have Comrade Emmanuel Idogen, who is Vice Chair, TUC, Lagos State Council.
Yes.
I'm just going to take a guess and say TUC doesn't like the fuel price increase. No. I'm just guessing.
We don't like it. We don't like it.
Okay, we'll come to that. Let's start off. If I could start off with you, Bala. As I was saying, half jokingly, not very many people are impressed with this fuel price increase. But it probably could be in place for a number of reasons. So what is your, being an informed commentator on this matter,
Yes.
what is your read of the hike this time? This is not what Nigerians were expecting.
I was highly disappointed, but I was not surprised. I was not surprised because I felt the trajectory we are on at the moment is the wrong trajectory. The economic restructuring mechanism we decided to deploy to the downstream sector of the Nigerian oil and gas industry is the wrong economic restructuring mechanism based on peculiarities. Mm-hmm. In other words, the same restructuring mechanism of deregulation could have been functional and effective. But before you deploy mechanisms, generally when you talk about an economic sector, especially national sectors of an economy, a sector can be deregulated and you get the best out of it. A sector can be liberalized and you get the best out of it. A sector can even be privatized or commercialized. So all these four restructuring mechanisms work. But before you deploy any mechanism, you have to look at what we call indices or variables.
First of all, thank you very much for pointing out those shades of differences. So which one are we in exactly?
What we are in is, I can best describe as pseudo-deregulation, not even complete deregulation.
What's the pseudo part? Because pseudo-deregulation, is like a fake deregulation.
No, not necessarily. Incomplete.
Oh, okay.
Incomplete.
Oh, okay.
So it's called pseudo-deregulation in the sense that, from the context, from the technical definition of deregulation, what you mean is there will be no control of certain things like price. Mm-hmm. You will not determine where somebody is going to go and probably get the refined product, in this case technically called distillates. Mm-hmm. But most of the time what concerns the ordinary masses of this country probably are petrol and diesel. You will not control how the person, we are an importing nation, you will not control how the person gets his foreign currency to go and import. You will not control where he brings it from. And by the time he gets in country, you will not decide the amount at which he is going to sell it. Because an average businessman is into the business of cost minimization and price or profit maximization. But when you see an agency of government also coming in to say, the amount must not exceed Y or Z dollars, Z naira per liter, that means it is not a complete deregulation. Government still has some control. So the best you can technically describe it is to say it is pseudo. But for me, generally, whether it's pseudo or full deregulation, it is the wrong structuring mechanism you need to deploy to the downstream sector. I will prefer, if I have my way, that we deploy the mechanism of liberalization. If we can deploy liberalization, let us deploy the mechanism of commercialization. Definitely, I'm not for privatization, and I have my reasons. But let me concentrate on the ones I am suggesting or recommending. Liberalization simply means you will allow many players to come in. Then if you have a government arm of that kind of industry or sector, let the government arm die naturally to the glare of everybody. A practical example is Nitel. What happened in the case of Nitel was not privatization. It was liberalization. Other telecoms companies come in. And apart from that, again, technology was coming in. So even if we had opened it or not, by today, looking at Nigeria today, we will have been forced to open our arms. But in that case, you allow other telecoms company to come in, and then Nitel died a natural death. And that was why you don't see anybody protesting in Nitel, blah, blah, blah. But in the case of the downstream sector, especially the refineries, all we are saying, liberalize it. If you liberalize it, let other players come in. If the Nigerian refineries or the Nigerian-owned refineries cannot compete, let them die naturally. And if they die naturally, somebody like me will not be bothering myself about why do you want to privatize? Why do you want to sell it to nepotic relations and things like that?
Thank you very much indeed, for that overview. And we're going to come back, but I need to hear from the comrade as well. Yeah. So, Comrade Emmanuel, you were saying, in the very shortest way that possible, that this is something that we don't like. What is the situation in relation to are you trying to negotiate with government, or is it a protest that you are letting government understand this is where we are at? I know you're speaking for TUC in Lagos State.
Yes.
Let me hear it, please.
Okay. Good morning, Nigerians. The problem we are in today is as a result of leadership poverty. Leadership poverty in the sense that you discover that we have three arms of government: the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary. But all these arms of government, we now increase the fourth arm of government. Because if you look at the executive, it's a microcosm of corruption. If you look at the legislators are a microcosm of corruption. And the judiciary now is not the one inheriting corruption. Because the executive and the legislature, you pass it to the judiciary to play the for them. Look at the time we're negotiating. We're on the table negotiating. They went to a court to go and pick an injunction, to go and take an injunction against the labor, which is not done anywhere. And the fact remains that we are still negotiating. People said labor compromise during the call-ups protest we went to go into, but no, because we're living a coronavirus period. The country is barely struggling to meet up all the demand salary payments for the rest things. So these are the labor leaders look at. Okay,
when you say you're blaming it on you're blaming our situation here, and the situation, to be specific, is fuel shooting to 117 naira. Now you say if you look close enough, you find that corruption is at the bottom of all of this.
Yes.
How?
Because I was listening to the Minister of State of Petroleum yesterday on channels. He is saying that this is not food regulation. If they are doing food regulation, that the price would be more higher than this, which means it is the NNPC. The NNPC is the sole importer of fuel to speak, because the government of Nigeria is not telling us the truth. And they said the independent marketers can bring in fuel. It's not true. The independent are buying from NNPC. That's why you discover that corruption is the major thing.
Okay, I get your meaning now. And we'll also go into it a bit as to, things like Niger, for instance. Not all Nigerians understand exactly what is going on between us and Niger. In fact, there are sorts of things flying over social media about building roads to Niger, building rail tracks to Niger. Now, Nigeria actually is working towards, dare I say it, importing fuel from Niger. And there are all sorts of questions as to who exactly owns the refinery in Niger, and what is the state of our own refinery. Before we continue, gentlemen, we have a report that we put together in our newsroom. Let's take that and then continue with this conversation.
A nationwide industrial action by the NLC and TUC was fixed for September the 28th to protest the twin increases in prices of fuel and electricity tariff. But the government reached out to organized labor to sheath its sword and engage in dialogue. In the end, a memorandum of understanding was signed, and details included fixing existing refineries and entrusting them to efficient management, creating an enabling environment for new refineries, and achieving enhanced and sustainable local refining capacity. The MOU also contained a review of the increase in electricity tariff. But after subsequent meetings, Labour says it has lost confidence in the government's willingness to abide by the conditions set out. At a news conference to set the records straight the day after, the NLC and the TUC believe the recent fuel price hike constitutes a breach of the dialogue process.
While the committee was still working, the government had not taken any step to revitalize the local refineries and has flagrantly refused to discuss with the unions in the oil sector and gas sector as agreed.
If we say that we can't accept the regulation that is import-driven, and that the refineries must what before you think of it, and then you go into price fixing. Price fixing is not the same thing as the regulating.
After Sunday's failed meeting, the government has reached out to Labour to return to the discussion table, but these Labour leaders say that will be determined by the government's response to prioritizing the functioning of local refineries.
It is clear that government is not prepared for a sincere and honest dialogue on finding a lasting solution to the twin issues of petroleum price increase and electricity tariff.
The NLC and the TUC are reaching out to their organs for the next step.
Organized Labour insists it is a pan-Nigerian organization committed to protecting the interests of Nigerian workers and the entire citizenry. It says it has not lost focus or its resolve to act in furtherance of its members' interests and the country as a whole. Joke Edson, TVC News, Abuja.
Okay, our thanks to Joke, and that report went out earlier. As I said, we can now continue the conversation with that backdrop. Bala, coming to you again, TUC was saying that government just wasn't showing good faith in the sense that which even the MOU that they had. They had, yes. The religion thing. Yes, government was not coming across. Comrade here has said that he sees corruption. The comrade in the video was saying insincerity of purpose and government not willing to do the right thing. Why do you think the situation is like that? That is government not being able to come across on understanding that it had actually appended its signature to that would be moving us forward and showing that indeed we are transparent here?
Well, the answer is very forward and simple. The biggest tragedy that the country will experience or find herself in is the tragedy where you have people who want to be leaders but are not good economic managers. The biggest mistake a country will have or will make is to have somebody that you will hand over the economic, social, and political destiny into their hands, and they are not good economic, social, and political managers. That's the only thing that is happening. You know, when you talk about growing an economy, the principles are the same. You can never, some of these principles and concepts are global and universal concepts. You know, corruption is an attitude. Corruption is not a concept. That's why you cannot see scholarly writings on corruption as a concept. But refining is a concept. Journalism has principles and concepts. You know, refining, medical sciences, even leadership, even politics is an approach. You know, but corruption is not an approach. It's just an attitude. It's a stupid attitude that can also be stamped out. So to that extent, you know, any country where you hand over the destiny of that country into their custody cannot analyze variables of GDP this time around. You know, if they cannot, something is wrong. And if they cannot, there is nothing wrong in them getting the right technocrats to guide them. But in the context of Nigeria, even the technocrats have a big share of their blame. When you talk about GDP, right, gross domestic product, and those are the things that even determine whether a country will go into recession or not. You look at consumption index. You look at investment index. You look at government expenditure. Then you look at your export-import differentials. In the case of consumption index for Nigeria, it is predicated on what we call disposable income. Disposable income is basically what comes to you, your pocket, after all the taxes and obligations are removed. In the case of Nigeria, disposable income has been eroded. It doesn't almost exist. It has been eroded by inflation and other things. Because as we speak today, in Nigeria, the minimum income is less than $100. And that is the same country where minimum income is less than $100 that is relying on imports, running up and down to look for forex. That tells you what will happen. In terms of investment index of GDP, of course, investment has to do with people coming, small companies, big companies, mega corporations being busy, you know, create aggregate mobility for work, you know. When you look at the context of Nigeria as we speak, investors are seeing Nigeria as a destination that is not good because of business climate hostilities. I don't even want to go into other macroeconomic indices, like all those taxes and the rest.
And you say this in spite of efforts that...
Well, I will tell you where...
efforts to make the cost of doing business lower and the whole experience, you know...
That's why
much more
I'm analyzing the indices of the variables of the GDP. We finished talking about consumption, disposable income that has been eroded by inflation and the rest. Then we are talking about the investment index. Everybody knows that people are not coming in to invest. Foreign direct investors are not coming. Even local direct investors are not willing to invest because they are experiencing business climate hostilities. There is high degree of insecurity in the country, right? The cost of power is very, very high. Like I said, I don't want to go to other aspects that have to do with tax and the rest, but we can get to that. Then when you look at, again, something that helps GDP,
ease of doing business in Nigeria, you would challenge that concept.
I will challenge it. From the point, technically, I will challenge it from the point of multiple taxes, right? From that point alone. Then when you talk about insecurity, we see it. You understand? And we are talking about a dynamic world today where something can happen in your bedroom, you are not aware, but somebody has flagged it. Then come and look at the export-import differentials. We export virtually nothing. What we export that we call a source of revenue contributes a meager thing to our GDP.
Yes.
Then look at government expenditure. Government is not spending much because government is not generating revenues. So when you look at all these variables of the GDP and they are down, then you are now having inflation. You are now having high population. Then you are also having issues with insecurity. The normal and the basic thing you need to do as leaders is to check and recalibrate all your strategies. But this is where I blame the technocrats. And when I talk about the technocrats, I'm referring to the engineers, the lawyers, the journalists, the accountants, the environmentalists, the economists, and the rest. I want to believe and accept that most of the, you can be a leader, but you are not a medical doctor. You must not be a banker. You rely on these people. But this is my concern now with technocrats. Our technocrats should have the boldness and the courage to now be telling our leaders certain things that our leaders need to hear. If a leader tells you that we want to go to the right, he is telling you because he trusts you. Mm-hmm. And if you know that going to the right will be injurious to the economy, going to the right will be injurious to the social status of the country. Going to the right will be injurious to the political history and name and image of the country. Tell the boss. Okay, tell the leader.
Well, indeed.
If you don't, you will direct the leader into the lagoon.
Okay, because first of all, Comrade Emmanuel said he feels that we are experiencing a crisis of leadership here. And you've also, yes, quality leadership. Yes. And you have also said those that are actually in charge, that is knowledge, you know, the technocrats need to, quite frankly, have a bit more balls.
Yes.
To do the needful.
To tell the leaders.
Tell their leadership.
Or their bosses.
Or whoever what exactly is going on. Now, I can't possibly imagine that the technocrats don't know. Your good self, you're very much one of them. So it's not a matter of ignorance. No, I don't think it's a matter of ignorance. So it comes back to the question of why are we not being told, that is, why are leaders not being told the truth? And you had said, well, I'm sure you will be saying, because when we saw that report, TUC was saying in there that our primary concern is to look out for the interest of workers in this town. And everything Bala has said affects the quality of life and disposable income of the workers. Yes. Now, do you buy government's? Well, clearly you don't, and that's part of your job. Yes. You know, that's part of your job, not to buy it. But what are the defenses that NMPC, for instance, and he spoke about that, he didn't mention NMPC by name.
I will get to that.
But NMPC is it has a horse in the race. The NMPC has a horse in the race. Yes. Give me your impression.
Okay. You know, when Engineer Bala is talking about technocrat not being coming forward, not being coming forward to the government. Yes. I disagree with him in some parts. It's very right. But you discover that in this part of the country, we reward loyalty than professionalism. What is Igige doing in Ministry of Labour? What is Igige doing in Ministry of Labour? Igige have no business in Ministry of Labour. Igige has he doesn't know poverty. He has not worked. He hasn't worked. So he doesn't know what the other workers are feeling.
Well, that's a matter of your opinion.
Yes, because if you follow the trend of politics, you discover that the politicians, they don't care about the masses. They don't care about the masses, and even when you make recommendation, because that's of administration.
I don't want you to personalize
I want to be scientific in my discussion. I don't want to be emotional.
Because the Minister of
I have an experience with them.
The Minister of Labour is a medical doctor.
Yes.
You know, is that one of your criticisms, that he's not a thorough professional?
Yes. And if you are a medical doctor, you should work in civil service.
The kind of technocrats that
you should work in civil service to know how workers feel.
Oh, okay.
You understand? And because of that, because he doesn't know, that is why you discover that the state controllers are doing whatever they like. I had a case with a controller of Ministry of Labour controller in Lagos. Instead of them to be at the middle, they will join the employer against the employee. And he's sitting in Abuja there, doesn't know what is happening. Because of it. I'm a farmer. But today, maize into this country when we have abundance. A 25 kg of a bag of feed is now 4,270, as the case may be. How are the farmers going to sell the product?
And this is going into the effect of
Yes.
this
Yes,
price
because
increase.
of price increase. Because the labor were the federal government signed an MOU with labor leaders, the organized labor. They were in discussion. At the middle of the discussion, they just overheard that fuel had been increased. Is that not a deception?
I see what you're saying.
That's a deception.
That's
why I pointed everything down to, narrow everything down to corruption. Because you know that an average Nigerian, average worker, the fuel is the sine qua non of his livelihood.
And so in this
You
way,
can't do without it.
and so what the point you are making and outlining is that in this way, inflation is worsened. You know, you have poverty. Going higher, and all the untowards effect. But he also says, Bala, that government. I don't know if we can bring in emotionalism.
Let me.
No, I understand.
Yes,
no, I'm referring to the charge of wicked, loyalty to your boss or whatever, your leader.
If I'm loyal to you, you appoint me. You give me an appointment.
Okay.
If I'm loyal to you, irrespective of
My competence.
your competence.
Oh, okay, that's the point.
Yes.
Okay.
Because even in families, in Nigeria, I discovered that we try as much as possible to weaken the strong to strengthen the weak. That is what we do in this country.
Weaken the strong to strengthen
the weak.
Oh dear. Okay.
I think everybody, as long as that person is a Nigerian, even if that person is a technocrat, that person knows what Nigeria is going through. The economy of Nigeria is almost getting to a kind of prostrate level. Everybody that works in government
We're
knows
officially
about
in a depression, right?
Yes. No, not depression. Recession.
Recession. I mentioned.
Yes.
Recession.
Officially. Yes. You see, the reason is because whether somebody is a minister, a local government chairman, a senator, he came from a given family. He will have a cousin. He will have a niece. So to that level, from that point, we know. But you see, let's go straight into the technicalities. You know, why somebody like me felt bad about the technocrats was because something just happened in Niger, which we can now talk practically. If you look at Niger, right, as we speak, we're made to understand that Nigeria and Niger signed an MOU, right? And we're made to understand that Niger has started refining, and Niger is enjoying what we can best describe as self-sufficiency and wants to export the rest. The first thing I want to say is this. Niger is a landlocked country. Nigeria is bounded by coastal waters. Niger is reasonably in the Sahel, and a greater part of Niger is in the desert. I don't need to analyze how a desert looks like, you know. Then if a country like Niger, right, can in less than 3 decades be able to establish an oil company, go into oil and gas exploration, construct a state-owned refinery, state-owned in quote, you know, start producing refined products that we call distillates, experience self-sufficiency and wants to export the rest, you know, that tells you that Niger deserves an applaud or deserves to be congratulated. First of all, for having that refinery, right, they will now start contributing to the GDP. And this is the way you contribute to GDP. It's downstream that really contributes more. Wherever they had that refinery in Zindar, there will be something we call refinery village. Rice sellers will be coming. Carpenters will be going. Drivers will be there. Accountants will be there. Restaurant owners will be there. Vegetable sellers. Before you know, you create what we call mobility of activities. You know, then if Niger could do that, and the nameplate capacity of Niger refinery is just 30,000 barrels. The nameplate capacity of Nigeria's 4 refineries is 445, I'm sorry, yeah, 1,000 barrels per day, which is about 11 times more than Niger. By all standards, what Niger is doing should have been what we are supposed to be doing. And let me tell you the benefits. When you look at Nigeria, Niger is not a member of OPEC. Nigeria is a member of OPEC. So Nigeria stands to get advice, to cross-fertilize knowledge, and to get protected by that strong cartel called OPEC. If Nigeria were to be refining internally, the first thing Nigeria will do is Nigeria will get knowledge from Qatar, Nigeria will get knowledge from Brazil, from Saudi Arabia, and other countries that are doing well, like Malaysia and the rest. Before you know, from only the crude oil refined products, you know, all we need to do is to look at the West African sub-region, you know, become self-sufficient just like Niger, then look at the West African sub-region. Then all we need to do is to construct rail lines across this region or to construct pipelines. With these rail lines, before you know, we will start supplying them. And before we know, we will construct depots in all these countries. If you construct depots, before you know, you will charge them for the depots. One day, you will send your engineers there to go and be maintaining the depots. Before you know, you will send your accountants there. Before you know, you will even send your energy journalists to go there so that they can come up with reports that will help to boost your image internationally. And before you know, you will have what we call regional power. There is no way you will have regional power without having economic power. And when you get to that point, when you talk, everybody will listen. That is the way economies...
Yes, but that is not the situation we have.
That is not the situation, and this is the answer is also very simple and straightforward. There is this saying right from when we were kids that even if you had gone 1 million miles and you feel you are on the wrong track, there is nothing wrong in coming back. I think it is very, very clear. Nigeria is supposed to be, when it comes to the downstream sector of the oil and gas industry, Nigeria is supposed to be refining just like China, state-owned refineries. Nigeria is supposed to be refining just like Saudi Arabia, just like Iran, just like Petronas of Malaysia, just like Petrobras of Brazil, even like as Libya. So to that extent, it means it is doable.
It is a doable
If it is a doable thing, we should do it. We should retrace our strategies and recalibrate our approaches.
Okay, one moment, please. Mazi Okoro, good morning, and thank you for calling in.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, our guests in the studio.
Thank you.
It's a very purely economic and purely political, purely refined. Mr. Yori and our guests in the studio, you see, no matter whatever we talk today in Nigeria, both labor, both economic science, unless the federal government go back to the basis, the modular refinery, what are we waiting for? We have to put this modular refinery into the... Yesterday, I was watching television. What did I say? That the Navy have arrested those doing oil bunker at the IC. What does it pay the government? All those equipment they are using to do that bunkering. Why not bring them? Let them come and put it in use. Let the government manage those and government supervise it. Okay, the problem we talk and the government is there. So let me tell you, whether we like it or not. On 20 September, the new government in America, when Iran is done, Iran will not pass in their own way. When Iran says Nigeria oil is trying to ground floor. Nigeria oil is trying to what we are talking about recession. It's going to be another goal for this. I think it will not happen. But what is that the body of Nigeria and make individually. We have to proceed with the forecast.
I'm sorry, Mazi. The line is poor. It didn't start out that way, but it got progressively worse, and it got to the stage we weren't hearing what we were saying. I think the plank of everything that you're saying is that you think we need to go back to the basics. Yes. This is very much along the lines that Bala has been constructing his contribution to the this conversation. You probably see it like that, but government is you're negotiating, but
Yes.
even as you're negotiating, they're, as it were, taking the rug out from under your feet by announcing,
The fuel increase.
A fuel increase.
Yes.
Do you see any merit in what is being said, that we need to go back to that and rethink all of this? I don't know, is it along classically recognized lines?
Yes, because
Bala has sort of outlined for us.
I agree that, because if you look at the press release after the Labour walked out of the meeting, yes, or after the fuel increment, one of the arguments there is that we should go back and declare state of emergency in the downstream petroleum sector. How do we do this? Let's encourage these modern refineries. Let's encourage them. Then,
which is one of the
yes. Then, even if you are bringing, like what he said, if you are bringing from Niger, let everybody know. Let be transparent about what you are bringing. Let everybody know what you are bringing. The supplies that are going, the distribution that are going to different filling stations. Let the masses be aware of it. Because even the what we are talking, we are buying about 170. It's not true. The meter is about 200 because they will do their dakabrad in tying their meters. The same filling station because there's a serious regulatory culture.
Yeah, but that's a very, very serious allegation.
It's a serious allegation.
Actually, people might be paying more than the increased price of 170 simply by doctoring
the meters,
the fuel pump meters.
Do you know why?
That's
because
very, very serious.
It's a serious allegation. Yes. Because there's a regulatory culture. In the sense that the PPROA, are they visiting the filling stations? No, because during the coronavirus, during the pandemic period, there was a addition to 150. The filling station refused to adjust their meter. We see as high as the one they announced before. So in that we discover that there's a serious regulatory culture.
Yeah.
Regulatory culture says that even when the PPRC go out, what they do is to do the usual. They collect the bribe and go home.
Well, comrade, I understand the way you put it, but as you know, on a program like this, he who alleges needs to prove. You made this astounding, allegation that Nigerians are being ripped off by actually paying more than the meter indication of 170 naira per liter, which Nigerians are saying is high. But you provide no proof.
If the PPROA, if they are doing their job.
But we've also heard that there is hardly a need for PPRA anymore if we indeed are doing that which we claim we are doing. That PPRA has become obsolete.
That is the problem, because now there's no need of PPRA. The NAPC.
PPRA, by the way, Petroleum Products
Regulatory
Price Agency.
Agency.
Just in case somebody just flew into the country this morning and is watching the PPRA.
For instance, the NAPC, who is NAPC? The federal government. Is the sole importer of into this country. Is the one increasing the fuel.
So what kind of directive is that? What kind of pseudo? We heard about a pseudo regulation.
Sir, you see, whether we accept it or not, we have been on the wrong track. We have been on the wrong trajectory. We just need to come back. The first thing we need to do is to understand that everywhere in this world, there are two things you need to manage effectively, and your economy will be on a good drive or right to El Dorado. Human assets and material assets. Nobody will say Nigerian human capital is not strong. We can't be rubbish within Nigeria, but globally, Nigeria is a country that you will recognize because of its human assets. The human assets in Nigeria needs to be managed. When you talk about material assets, we're talking about endowment, natural endowment. And let's just talk about this area, this aspect we're dealing with, the crude oil. Sir, we are well endowed. The management and the economic management and the approaches, whether you call them modalities, whether you call them strategies or formulas, are the things we need to look at and manage properly. Niger is refining as we speak. Niger is getting the crude oil from within Niger. They are taking them to the refineries first of all, it's from a field called Agaden, right? And they pipe have pipelines to the refineries in Zandar. They are refining within Niger. They are distributing, and just 5,000 barrel products is enough. In the case of Nigeria, we have also the crude oil here. As long as we have the crude oil here, all we need is get the crude oil from what we call the wellhead. The wellhead is just like a set of valves by the time you get the crude oil from the well to the surface. From the wellhead in Naira, move them to the respective refineries in Naira. Refine them in Naira. Distribute them to Nigerians in Naira. First of all, free yourself from these forex and exchange rate differentials. Then if we have excess, just like Niger.
Why would you imagine, putting on government's cap for the moment? Why would you imagine this is so difficult? Because the way you said it is so logical.
No, it's so elementary, and it's the truth also.
Yeah, but why is it being difficult for Nigeria? Why is this simple truth being difficult for Nigeria?
That was why we said sometimes it's not the leader. Being a leader does not mean you will be the surgeon, the accountant. That's why you have support experts. So what I'm suggesting and advising the experts is, honestly, tell the government the truth. If you don't tell the government the truth, you are not being fair. Because that person that appointed you as a technocrat is probably, yes, a political leader, but definitely he relies on your intellect, and that was why he did that. And so, like we said, if you refine internally, the first thing you do is you free yourself from exchange rate pressures.
Okay. Yes, because thank you very much, Bala. Where are we as far as the unions are concerned? The union, so what's the situation, since, quite frankly, government is not giving you any joy, and yet you feel this obligation to represent workers? Yes.
The truth of the matter is that we are on a crossroad. The union is on a crossroad because the government is just paying a lip service to all our negotiation. Because we're not just part of negotiation.
Like, from your point of view, it looks like government wants to continue as usual.
Yes, because when you tell the government this is not the right path, they will find a way to go to the illegal path, because you have blocked them here to go to the destination they are going to. That is why you are telling me that PPRO is obsolete, because the government feels so. The NPC, it's illegal for NPC to bring in fuel and determine the price of the fuel. See, the labor is just waiting for government to do the needful. We're into recession. Because, do you know why? The manufacturing which I represent in TUC have been suffering. People have been laying off workers every day by day in the industry because of lack of forest. The CPA is still consistently consistent. It's still going from one husband to another. They will come out today, monetary policy. Tomorrow they will change. Next tomorrow they will change. The SC we put to the bank cannot be approved because there's no forest.
It looks like...
When I say SC, I mean letter of credit.
I understood you. We're going to have to leave it here. And I know we'll barely scratch the surface, but I do think that thanks to, Engineer Ozaka and your good self, we have a sense of, it's almost like it's in a mess unless we're really ready to do the right thing.
Yes, if we are. Can I make 1 or 2 comments?
15 seconds, please.
Okay. Let's just understand it's doable. We can fix it. We probably have had economic vampires.
So many things are doable in Nigeria once we have the political will to do it.
But that's why I said we are ready to do it. But let's just also know that we will have a day with history and posterity. It's not too late to fix it. There is nothing wrong with our leaders. All we need to do is to guide them. If we feel they are not doing the right thing, let us tell them. I will not expect the leaders to know everything, but those who are supposed to be their lieutenants should support them. So because if Nigeria goes into the drain, we will all go into the drain together.
Well, if the leaders don't know very much about it, how are they going to know we're getting bad advice? No, but I'm actually putting sanction, I'm putting effect to what effectively is bad advice. No, but that was
why we are also calling on the technocrats. Okay. The appointment is one thing, but deliver and tell your bosses the truth. It's becoming clear that the leaders rely on the advisors. who are technocrats. Please, technocrats, have the boldness to guide your leaders right.
Okay, we're going to have to leave you there. I want to thank you very much, Engineer. Well, I started off calling you Mr. Balazaka, but...
I prefer Mr. I want to be part of the masses, so before I get
Thank you
lynched.
very much, Public Affairs Analyst and Comrade Emmanuel Idoga. Thank you very much, sir. Vice Chair, TUC, Lagos Council. Yeah. Thank you, gentlemen, for helping us get something of a handle over this complex subject, quite frankly. So that's our program today. Please join us tomorrow for a fresh edition. And remember COVID-19. Keep all the protocols. Because, as you know, there are countries that are re-locking down. We are very lucky in Nigeria, but still do what you can, please, to keep yourself safe. I'm Yori Folari. Bye-bye for now.
At TVC News, wherever the big news story is happening, we're geared up to break it. TVC News, first with breaking news.